There are kinds of exhaustion that do not show themselves in obvious ways. You still wake up every morning. You still go to school, go to work, reply to messages, and try to finish everything you are supposed to do. From the outside, people may think you are doing completely fine, but only you know how heavy everything has slowly become. There are days when simply getting out of bed already consumes almost all of your energy. Not because you are lazy, and not because you are weaker than everyone else, but because your mind has been under pressure for far too long without ever truly resting. Human beings are incredibly good at enduring. We become used to pushing ourselves even when we are exhausted. We become used to smiling and saying, "I'm okay," even when everything inside feels chaotic. Over time, you may not even realize how tired you truly are, because that emotional exhaustion has become your normal state. But suppressed emotions never really disappear. They quietly accumulate day after day. Every unresolved pressure, every sadness you never had time to process, every moment you forced yourself to stay strong, all of it remains inside you. And eventually, you begin to lose interest in the things that once made you happy. Goals that once excited you no longer feel meaningful. You procrastinate more, you struggle to focus. Sometimes, all you want is to disappear from every conversation and be alone for a long time. The frightening part is that many people do not realize they are mentally exhausted. They simply believe they are weak, undisciplined, or lacking motivation. But sometimes, losing motivation does not mean you no longer want to try. It means the energy inside you has already been drained for a very long time. Some people appear strong in front of everyone else, until one day they no longer have the strength to pretend they are okay. Many people lose motivation not because they lack ability, but because they are living a life that makes them feel increasingly disconnected from who they truly are. Some people choose their current path only to satisfy their family. Some chase success as quickly as possible because they are terrified of being looked down on. Others constantly force themselves to stay positive, talented, productive, or strong simply to feel accepted and valued. At first, they still have enough energy to keep pushing forward, but over time, a deep sense of emptiness slowly begins to appear, because deep inside, the human heart always knows what genuinely feels right for it. When you spend too long living according to other people's expectations, everything you do eventually starts to feel like an obligation rather than a meaningful choice. You achieve the things you once wanted, yet you still feel empty. You reach your goals, but inside, you remain exhausted. And the saddest part is that many people become so used to forcing themselves to keep going that they completely forget what it feels like to live honestly with their real emotions. They are always trapped in the mindset of needing to do a little more, become a little more successful, a little more impressive, a little more perfect. But the harder they push themselves, the more emotionally drained they become. Because people can endure pressure for a certain amount of time, but no one can spend their entire life pretending to be someone they are not. Eventually, the mind begins to resist. Sometimes, losing motivation is not a sign of laziness. It is a sign that your inner self no longer feels connected to the life you are living. And perhaps the most exhausting thing in life is not failure itself, but having to continue existing in a version of yourself that no longer feels real to you anymore. Some people constantly feel like they need to do better, move faster, become successful earlier. No matter how hard they try, they still believe they are not enough, not talented enough, not hardworking enough, not impressive enough compared to everyone else. And that constant feeling of being not enough slowly drains them without them even realizing it. Many people live under self-imposed pressure every single day. They wake up with countless thoughts already running through their minds, unfinished plans, goals they still have not reached, fears of falling behind while everyone else seems to move forward. Even when they try to rest, they feel anxious because they believe they are wasting time. The frightening part is that this kind of pressure often does not come from other people. It comes from the way we treat ourselves. People often believe that the harsher they are on themselves, the more successful they will become. But when a mind is constantly trapped in stress, self-criticism, and pressure, it slowly loses the energy needed to keep going. You begin procrastinating not because you are lazy, but because your mind has become overloaded. You struggle to focus not because you are incapable, but because you have been emotionally exhausted for far too long. Some people look completely fine on the outside. They still work, study, and continue trying every day. But deep inside, they have never truly felt allowed to rest. They are always carrying the invisible pressure of needing to improve, achieve more, and prove themselves. And slowly, without noticing it, their motivation disappears. Because human beings cannot truly grow in a mind that is constantly weighed down by pressure. Sometimes, what you need is not to force yourself to try harder. Sometimes, what you truly need is to stop fighting yourself all the time. There are periods in life when people are not truly sad, yet they no longer feel excited about anything either. Everything starts to repeat itself in an endless cycle. You wake up, do the things you are supposed to do, get through the day, and then go to sleep with a strange emptiness that is difficult to explain. And slowly, that emptiness begins to erase your motivation, because no one can keep trying forever in a life that no longer feels meaningful to them. Many people think motivation comes from having huge goals or extraordinary dreams, but in reality, what keeps human beings moving forward is often the feeling that life still contains something worth looking forward to. A relationship that makes you feel loved, a job that gives you a sense of purpose, a peaceful morning, a small reason to continue another day. These quiet moments are often what give people the strength to keep going, but when the mind becomes too exhausted, people slowly begin living like machines. They do everything out of habit: wake up, work, study, respond, sleep, repeat. Over time, they stop feeling connected to their own emotions. And the saddest part is that many people do not even realize they are slowly losing their connection to life itself. They simply assume they are bored or temporarily unmotivated. But deep inside, they may have already lost the feeling of truly being alive. Some people laugh and act normal all day long, but at night, they lie awake feeling an overwhelming emptiness inside them. They no longer know what they are trying so hard for. They no longer know whether any of it truly means something. And when life no longer touches a person emotionally, they slowly lose the energy to continue trying, because sometimes the most exhausting thing is not pressure or failure. Sometimes it is living for too long without feeling your heart genuinely come alive anymore. Some people appear completely fine on the outside. They rarely complain, rarely talk about their emotions. They handle everything on their own and always try to solve problems by themselves. Over time, the people around them become used to that image and start believing they are naturally strong all the time. But what many do not realize is that the longer someone is forced to stay strong alone, the more exhausted they become inside. Emotions do not disappear just because you stay silent. Pressure does not become lighter simply because you pretend. Everything is normal. When a person becomes used to enduring everything alone, they slowly begin hiding even their smallest exhaustion. They do not want to bother anyone. They do not want to seem weak. They do not want to explain too much about what they are feeling. And little by little, their inner world becomes lonelier and lonelier. The frightening thing is that human beings can endure an incredible amount of pain until one day they simply cannot anymore. Some people do not lose motivation all at once. It disappears quietly after too many days of forcing themselves to keep going without anyone truly understanding how tired they really are. Life slowly starts feeling like nothing more than responsibility. They no longer feel emotionally supported. They no longer feel safe enough to be vulnerable with anyone. And when someone spends too long emotionally holding themselves together, just to survive, the energy inside them slowly runs out. Many people do not actually need advice. Sometimes, what they truly need is a space where they no longer have to pretend they are okay, because some forms of exhaustion do not come from work or pressure alone. They come from having to stay strong for far too long without anyone ever truly holding their emotions with care. There is a truth that few people are willing to admit, that losing motivation is not always a sign that you are on the wrong path. Sometimes, it is simply your mind's way of protecting you after too many days of constant effort. Human beings were not designed to always be running, not designed to always be strong, and not designed to always have answers for their lives. There are periods when you no longer feel clear about what you want. You stop feeling excited about things that once mattered to you. You no longer have the energy to continue the way you used to. But that does not mean you have lost your value, and it does not mean you have failed. It simply means you have gone too far without ever truly stopping to breathe. Sometimes what you need is not another new goal, not a bigger plan, but a quiet enough space where you can rest without feeling guilty. A space where you are allowed to slow down without being pressured. A space where you can return to yourself, even if only a little, because motivation is not something that disappears forever. It only fades temporarily when a person loses connection with their own emotions. And when you start listening to yourself more, instead of forcing yourself to keep pushing, it begins to return naturally, not loudly, not quickly, but in a way that gently reminds you that you are still here, still living and still capable of starting again whenever you are ready.